LaunchLeft Podcast. We're just a podcast and we're LaunchLeft.
Hello and welcome to LaunchLeft Podcast, a space for famed creatives to launch the next wave of music rebels and an intentional space to highlight and empower all artists for whom radical creativity is not a choice but a necessity. Today our guest is thao and the getdownstaydown, and you'll be talking to her shortly, and we'll make sure that I pronounced her name right. Hope you're having a great day. Don't forget to rate and subscribe. Follow us on all socials at LaunchLeft. Well, hello, thao. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Good. So happy to have you on the show. Please pronounce your name in full for us so people watching and listening know how to say it as well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's my full name is Thao Nguyen.
And we love your band, thao and the getdownstaydown. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So wonderful. Specifically, well, we're going to play your video Phenom at the end. And that's the song that I heard because your album is coming out tomorrow. So it's kind of been, I haven't heard the whole thing yet. And it's so good. We at LaunchLeft highly recommend to all the viewers and listeners out there. And I remember reading when I was watching the video, which I love, by the way, I love any kind of video that includes movement and dance, that you were poised to make the video proper and then COVID-19 happened. Can you share a little bit about what happened after that? What the plan was, how it pivoted?
Yeah. Well, the original treatment for Phenom was going to be a dance video, given the energy of the song. This song in particular, of any on the album, needed a dance video. And so we were all set to shoot, and then South by Southwest was canceled, and you could just tell that that's where things were headed. And shortly thereafter, California was put under shelter-in-place orders. And we were due to shoot the video in LA at the end of March. And so the fate of Phenom was very much in question because I really wanted it out in the world, but I didn't know what video would accompany it. And we were talking about maybe making a lyric video and then circling back and doing the real dance video after the fact. But so much was in the air. There are so many unknowns. And then my manager, Joe, so this happened on a Monday. He called and said, what if we did the video on Zoom? What if we did the dance video on Zoom? Just to give you the time frame, Monday, Joe called me. By next Tuesday, the video was delivered.
Wow.
Because there was this urgency. We all knew. I mean, I wasn't sold. When I first heard it, I was like, this could go very poorly. This could be like painfully bad, and you're dealing with such a novel form. The moment is so heightened anyway, but once I saw the choreography, once I saw what Erin was working on, she sent a couple videos of like with her in all of the grids, figuring out the dance moves and stuff. Once I saw it, I had a good feeling that we could maintain the integrity of the song.
So I think it was so inventive. I can't believe you did it so fast. But it actually makes me want to ask you the question of your creativity during this time as well. And as an artist, because obviously that was something that came together. I think sometimes too, when things are meant to come together, they just do, even against all odds. And I think it's an important video for right now and song. And so I'm so glad that it did come together so easily, but it makes me think about talking more about creativity at this time. And there's different artists have really experienced this time very differently. And I'm just curious how you've been in terms of your creative.
Sure. I think it's been, at this point, are we almost 2 months in to, so it feels like so many lifetimes of different creative ebbs and flows and bursts and just complete withdrawal. And so I've experienced all of that. And luckily, that was part of the urgency of making that video in Zoom, is it was right at the beginning. And there was this energy that we could bottle and tap into. And you could tell, or I could feel it too, that in a little while, there would be waves of, I already had fallen into slight despondencies. I had already been so bereft, and I just knew it would continue. So I think in general, my relationship with creativity has been capture it when you can, and when you're moved to do so, and when you're not, do not feel bad about it. Like this idea that artists should be producing, and also not only producing, but producing like a more heightened, in touch, hallowed, sacred thing, just to mark this time for all of us. But, we're all really stressed out. We all have lost our livelihoods several times over. So I think anyone who can do it, incredible. And there should be no sense of self-loathing, no sense of disappointment when we can't do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's sort of the mark of an artist too, though, is often is extreme self-loathing.
Yeah, I know. But that's the thing. It's that we already do it so much already. Like,
I know, right?
We are like, no one worry about how shitty we feel about ourselves. We got it covered.
I know it's certainly is a very insecure time, just in terms of all the things that we used to be able to do to ensure survival being stripped away. Right. And obviously not just for artists, and for everyone in many respects, but I think in an already insecure industry, I hate to call it even an industry, but the arts is something that, as it is not considered a decent job to begin with, right? Or like, unless you become huge or a pop star or something, like it's always a struggle. You don't get, insurance for it often, or you don't, it's like the basic things. Your parents don't recommend it as a job description. It's already got a bad rap. Being an artist,
it's got a bad rap. Yeah.
But yeah, it's also, I think a lot of people do look to artists and the arts for inspiration and exaltation and taking them out of the everyday, living inside the box kind of way.
I think we, the opportunity to be healthily distracted in whatever form that takes is like we're leaping at the chance. I think there's so much grief, spoken and unspoken. I think we're processing that however we can. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's a really amazing time to make something for nothing else but to have made it. And it's and I talk to my friends who are musicians as well about reassessing, taking this time, as you said, to pull back and reassess how we want to be a part of the game, and if we do, and how, because it already is such an unstable, I think in many ways undercompensated, underappreciated field. But what you make, but people want to consume. There's an audience for it, but there's varying degrees of support for it, and now's the time to help redefine how we participate.
I agree. I think the most important thing is like when we come back, whatever coming back looks like, how are we going to be extra supportive, not only of artists, but of the support system for artists, and like, right. and what is what was the industry as we knew it, and what don't we want to bring back? What do we want to leave in the ashes? Yeah. Because there's plenty, I think, that was unfair.
This other piece that I've been that obviously we've all had to confront, especially people releasing work right now, that negotiating that it's a very weird place to be, to be aware of the very stark, very basic issues of true survival in the realist sense versus the survival of a livelihood or a career or whatever. But then to release work at this time, it is really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
In moments to promote or to talk about I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
And it's this ongoing navigation, but you don't necessarily want to apologize all the time for talking about your work or releasing at this moment. It's sort of like, and how do we explain all of the years that everyone's work that just in normal life would have just happened, and the culmination, that the timing of it is such that I don't know if it's just a really weird time.
It is. I know. We were just talking about this yesterday. There's always a way, if you connect your heart to it, or like why you ever decided to play music, like what was the reason that drew you to be a musician, that saved you maybe at a time as a kid, right? That drew you in, whatever was that thing that made you feel safe with music. You can promote that.
Yeah.
Right? Like while
right.
releasing your things, because that's what led to who you are as an artist now. And that's what led to the beauty of your songs and your videos and your new record. It's like, is that kid that needed music. And that, for me, life is stories, right? Like it really is about connecting up to each other's stories and feeling like I understand you. The only way I will understand you is when you share like a real truth about yourself, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so I think sometimes that's how, because it is really hard. So I don't know if that helps, but that's what I've been thinking about and trying my best to do, is just like go to the heart of why it's coming out. Like what's the motivation, right? If you check your motivation, people, they want to connect and they want to hear good music. It's like how we talk about it. I think that maybe takes it out of the icky and into the, hopefully transformative realm where the song really moves somebody and guides them towards creating or, drawing or writing poetry. I don't know. Totally. That's my hope always, is like, well, whatever it is, may it lead to someone else feeling inspiration and joy and getting out of their anxiety.
Yeah. I really appreciate that perspective. Definitely. It's been really helpful and I do think of this album this way, just as an offering, as the most sincere offering to date, looking, as a seeking.
Yeah. So the tracks I've heard are just so powerful. I asked 2 questions. It used to be 3, but one became, I noticed that when I asked this one, I get the answer to the 2. So I just asked 2 now.
Perfect.
And that is just how music did find you. How did music find you?
Oh, it found me the way that what you were talking about, the way salvation does. It just, I've always loved it, but when I actually started playing, I was 11 when I started playing guitar, and it was out of deep loneliness and sadness. And I grew up in a very turbulent house, and that was the thing. That was my solace. But listening to music, that no matter what, and I just love that you said that, because it's so important for me to remember in making music and being a part of the music industry or doing this for my living, to remember how I loved it and how integral, to remember first and foremost that I'm a fan of music. It's always been such an incredible place of solace.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm.
Wow. So you were 11 and you started with guitar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And when did you first, like, what song did you first hear that kind of brought, like, where your mind was blown? Do you
It
remember?
was, oh yeah, I remember I was 6 years old and I heard Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, You Really Got a Hold on Me.
Oh, God, yes. I love
And I remember it was WBIG, 100.3 WBIG, which is the oldies station. And I remember laying down next to the speaker because I just like couldn't handle it. You know, like I needed to like climb inside the speaker. I didn't know who was singing at that point. Roseanne, you remember the show Roseanne? Yeah. And this character, Crystal, she smoked in the show. And so when I heard Smokey Robinson's voice, the rasp, to me, I just saw Crystal from Roseanne. I got, so I was just like imagining her singing to me. But it's so vivid. And like those melodies are incredible.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great first one.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so I assume through high school you were already playing regular. If you discovered at 11, started playing probably by high school. Did you have a high school band, like rock band kind of thing? Or?
You know, I went totally the solo singer songwriter route for a while, and I had a friend who I sang with, where I wrote the songs and she would sing with me, and we performed at every open mic night in Virginia and DC. And my mom was really cool about letting me borrow her car and going out, because open mic nights are always just Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So every week I was out there, we were out there playing and cutting our teeth. Yeah.
Wow. So you were courageous as well. You were getting in front of audiences and doing open mic nights.
I was.
I don't know if I've done one of those before.
Oh man, I've done enough for all of us. Don't worry, you don't have to do
it. Even karaoke freaks me out.
Oh, I'm terrified of karaoke because their expectations, and I'm like, I'm not that kind of singer, so I'm just sorry for
I know, and I've had that same thing where I think people just assume I'm gonna like get up there and do it, and for some reason it's never in my right key.
Right.
So I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I'll try that one, and then it's I don't even know how to get to the melody. It's so weird, right?
Totally.
So I've had only like not great experiences.
Oh, I've had deeply embarrassing ones. Or you think you know the melody, but then you realize you only know it if you hear it and sing along.
Right.
But if they take that out from underneath you, it's over. And it's
exactly.
Yeah, it's so embarrassing.
And we digress. I love it. The other question I have is, what form of activism does your art take, or what do you resonate with that's more about how what you do as a creative connects to the bigger picture, or do you have anything like that?
Yeah, I do. And I really appreciate you asking. Not this record, 2 albums ago. So in 2013, we released an album called We the Common. And that was entirely inspired by and in tribute to the California Coalition for Women Prisoners. And I've been a volunteer with them for years, since before that record. But so it's been really remarkable to be involved with them for a very long time. So I'm really interested in criminal justice and prison reform. And I do a lot of work with, I come from refugees. So I have, especially now, given all of the rhetoric, anything that humanizes the experience of someone who is a refugee of war. And when I was in school, before I decided to focus on music, I was a sociology major, and I wanted to go into social justice work, but with a focus on domestic violence prevention. That's like, that comes from childhood stuff. And all of it is intertwined, but so there's all that I've been more actively involved with, and Oxfam America, I have a sort of Sisters on the Planet ambassadorship with them. And but with this latest record, I think it was really important this is the first record wherein I'm publicly out in the press. And a lot of it is about this, how I was out in my own life and in my professional daily life, but my family had a lot of issues with me being out publicly. And so it's been this like crazy, long, arduous road to get to a place where I could still belong to them and belong to myself. Wow. So when you talk about stories, yeah, it's so important, I think. And I feel like I've been so overdue in contributing my story, and it's so important. And every time someone is out in the media, I really appreciate it. And I've always, I felt like I wasn't doing my part.
You did your part when it was right for you too.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And that's the other thing is, it's been so funny that because now it's like everyone's out, who cares? But not who cares, but within a certain realm of pop culture and media now, it's not that big of a deal. But if you come from the people I come from, I think it's really important to remember that it's still hard in a lot of ways for a lot of people. Simultaneously, it also was a chance for me to say, I love my family and the culture I come from, and I'm trying to, this is my embrace of them as well, which heretofore has not necessarily happened in my music or my records.
Yeah. And inclusion goes both ways, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like acceptance goes both ways.
Right, for sure.
Because I think anytime people feel defensive, it's because someone really pointed a finger at them. And the hardest thing we can do is not point fingers, but have conversations and tell stories, right? That's so difficult for us, yet definitely the way that would make things more manageable.
Right.
But we have a habit to wrong and right in such an extreme way.
Yeah.
That's our habit. That's humanity's habit. It's like, no, I'm right. No, and that's the thing that creates all the conflict. And it's difficult to talk about things you don't agree on.
Right.
But actually talking about them and having conversations where you can hear someone's side and they hear yours, and there's not this like aggression.
Totally.
It's really the only time I've seen people change is when I've had the willingness to not say you're wrong, but say, well, what's your opinion? This is mine. It really bothers me. Yours really bothers me, but let me understand it more.
Right. The silence and distance is hard in a different way, but so much easier to lean into. Right. Or fall into, and you could go years, decades,
Yeah, I have regrets about things like that, But you also have to have parties willing to go both ways. Both parties have to be willing.
Yeah.
So, some of my regret is wrapped up in an unwillingness from other people.
Right.
To go there,
Yeah. And then also
there's always into it.
Yeah. I've definitely had the fear of extending myself and witnessing the unwillingness. And I think that's enough fear that you don't extend yourself.
Right.
And that's how things can go for years and years.
Yeah. Wow, we went deep. But, that's talking about, how your art activates your activism. Why wouldn't we go deep? That was really beautiful. And thank you for sharing, your involved. Hats off for doing something that's such an intense and important, really important thing to be working in. So I'd love to hear more about it. And maybe you could send us some links and we'll put them up on LaunchLeft's YouTube.
Oh, I would love that.
That would be
Thank
great.
you.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
To contribute in some way and try to get the word out. Well, let's see. I think we might have your co-producer, I think, right? He did the record with you?
And bandmate.
Here in the waiting room. So we're going to bring him in and say hi. Hi, Adam.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. We want to just have a little moment of technical discussion with you specifically about the record Temple. And we're going to put Phenom at the end of this episode, the video and the song, if they're listening on audio. We love that song, but I'd love to hear more from you both about just the record and what the process was like working together, and anything you want to share.
Temple is the first record that we produced ourselves, and we've been in a band together so long. I trust Adam's ear and his musical instincts so much, and we also understand what our strengths and what our interests are, that the balance was it's like a very beautiful arrangement. But I'll let him confirm that.
Definitely. No, that's a huge part of like what we do and what we've always done has been this collaboration of interests, I guess, and sort of translating that into the music we're making. So it really, what you hear is exactly what we wanted to make, to the point of like, as creative as we could possibly be inside of the parameters of Tao's sort of vision for the song thematically and dealing with the lyrics and things, and having the music sort of speak to that as well. Yeah, I think a lot of our desires on this record were fulfilled. I think we ultimately were able to create exactly what we set out to do through a very, very long process. There were actually multiple revisions of the record. Yeah, all the way from the very beginning of sort of the initial demos of Tao's ideas coming to me, and then me reimagining those, sending those back to her, and sort of like bouncing off of each other, and creating like that all the way to the end.
Well, that's really cool that this is your first self-produced. That must have been fun and different, and almost, I'm guessing, a little scary, because you probably, sometimes that idea of having a producer really, you can, relax a little bit and be the artist more, right? Even though, of course, you're weighing in, or you are involved, but to really say like, okay, we're going to be at the helm as well.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, was that a lot of anxiety, or was it excitement, or?
It was exciting. For me, it was exciting for the most part. I think, having fresh ears, as they say, that's real. And that's like that's a great resource to have. And I think there were points where you just were pretty overrun with the album, the song, and you're so deep in it. I think regaining or capturing perspective sometimes was more difficult.
Yeah.
Definitely, especially over the course of, Tao, would you say this took us 2 years to make?
Yeah. I would say 2 years. I would say 2 years for songwriting, and then another 2 years for the recording of it.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like all of that time, and sort of the Joe came in, we had already made an entire record, and it was mixed and we were ready to have it mastered. And the band's manager, Joe Goldberg, came to us, and we thought about, remixing it and reimagining it and adding songs. And we were like, do we stop here? We had just created this entire record, and I think ultimately what happened is we ended up creating another one on top of it and mashing the two together. So that's kind of what you hear.
Thanks for being on the show and for sharing about your creative and things that move you. And this is a hard time for all of us, and I'm just always more inspired and joyful after speaking to fellow artists. And so I appreciate your time and sharing your amazing record and music with us here on Launch Left.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for your support. We really appreciate it.
For all you watchers and listeners, we're going to hang up this call, and then you're going to hear and watch Phenom, the single off thao and the getdownstaydown's new record entitled Temple. Enjoy.
Sip on joy, the purest drink. Move to make, thought to think. They can feel us from afar. Avenues and boulevard. White collar cannibal, what you gonna do? Everyone's attending, so who you gonna choose? I will not equivocate. If that's so, let's celebrate. Shamefully, shame's claim on me. Solve it, I dissolve it famously. I've been so politely at the bottom. Pull it tight, bootstraps, strap it on and top 'em. I've been so politely at the bottom. Pull it tight, bootstraps, strap it on and top 'em. Past, I was patient. Now I'm so tired. Feverish you, I will not drop it. Power, cowards never stop it. I have nurtured you, corrupted. I am erupting, don't interrupt it. Careful, I'm an animal, trap. First of the secondary class. You know I don't trust you, it's the catch. Don't you fucking touch me, I will nash. 'Cause I am an old phenomenon, and I am an old phenomenon. Show them we believe, see the unforeseen. Sharpen canine teeth, get those ringside seats. When the scorched of the earth come back by sea. Sip on joy, the purest drink. Move to make, thought to think. They can feel us from afar. Avenues and boulevard. I've been so politely at the bottom. Pull it tight, bootstrap, strap it on and top. I've been so politely at the bottom. Pull it tight, bootstrap, strap it on and top. I've been so politely at the bottom. 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 But I am an old phenomenon. But I am an old phenomenon. But I am an old phenomenon. But I am an old phenomenon.
Launch Left aims to create an intentional space that highlights and empowers all artists for whom radical creativity is not a choice, but a necessity. Launch Left begins with music, but its ultimate aim is to launch left-of-center artists in all creative fields.